As the Rams get ready for week 2 of the NFL season, a huge opportunity for Cam Akers. Will he grab it? That's next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Travis Rogers. You can follow along with me on Twitter under my name at Travis Rogers. And not only do I host the Locked On Rams podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, I also am the host of the Rams pre- and post-game show on their flagship station, ESPN 710, right here in Los Angeles. We'll get that one started at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Myself and my partner, longtime NFL linebacker Kirk Morrison, we will have that for you at 11 on ESPN 710. What we are going to do today, after you click that subscribe button in your podcast feed and check us out on Locked On Rams on YouTube, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, helping you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. We're going to give you some of the keys to victory for the Rams coming up on Sunday. They, of course, have what felt like the one easy game in their schedule in the first month or so is now a very different feeling game after what happened in Buffalo. I'll give you some keys to victory on that one. I want to talk about something that the Rams are going to want to make the Falcons do on Sunday if this is going to go the way that Rams fans are hoping that it will, specifically what to do with Marcus Mariota. If you can make him do one thing, you're in a pretty good shape. There's a reason Marcus Mariota has bounced around. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit, but let's get right to this. Offensive line was not good for the Rams in the opener. The offensive line has been depleted with the injury to Brian Allen, and now you're shuffling pieces up and down the line. Coleman Shelton goes from right guard to center. Tremaine Ankrum goes into right guard. So obviously, you're a little bit thinner there in week 2 than you were in week 1. And that's important. That piece needs to be a lot better. But I want to start with Cam Akers. I want to start with what Sean McVay, the head coach, had to say about him. He had 3 carries for 0 yards last week. He had 12 snaps. He was only on the field for 12 snaps. He was healthy. This was not an injury-related thing where he played a little bit early and got hurt, and that was it. He only played 12 snaps. This is what Sean McVay had to say about Cam Akers' opportunities going into week number 2 here. He's going to get an opportunity to do it this week. Really, it's just not one guy. I know what Cam's capable of, but I know what we're capable of as an offense as a whole. Let's start right there. Stop right there, I should say. I know what Cam's capable of, but I know what we're capable of as an offense as a whole. It's not just one guy. In other words, I can take it or leave it. I'll take it if it's good. I'm ready for it, but I don't have to have it. That's an interesting way to start that response, because to me, that is, look, if he's good to go, I'll use him, but I don't have to have this. We have other opportunities. Back to what Sean McVay said. This isn't about one individual. This is about coaches and players competing and performing to the best of their abilities. And I think better results will come if we just take it a day at a time. There's a lot of football left to be played, but the sense of urgency and the intent and purpose behind every single day has got to be great for us. Okay. I think that's fascinating, because what I hear when Sean McVay says like that, the intent and urgency of every single day has to be there for us when talking specifically about Cam Akers, means that it wasn't. Means that this was not somebody who was using his opportunities, whether that was in practice or joint practices or camp or whatever it may be, and leaving the coaching staff with the impression that you are fully invested in this. That's what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is, look, he's a good player. We'd love to have him. But if he isn't as invested in this as the rest of us are, I'm going to do it without him. Okay, that's interesting to me, because Cam Akers, and let's go back and look at some of the things that Cam Akers has been able to do in his career with the Rams. Let's go back to that playoff game that he had not that long ago, right? That playoff game that he had against the Seattle Seahawks way back in January of 2020, 2021, technically. 28 carries, 131 yards, and he had a touchdown. He also had a 20-yard carry. He also caught a couple of passes for 45 yards, including a 44-yard reception along the way as well. So you're talking about a guy that put up nearly 200 yards of total offense in a playoff game. It's in there. You go back to what he did during the 2020 season, right? This was a guy that was averaging about 4.5 yards a carry and touching the ball about 10 times a game, give or take. That's not just a guy that you can take or leave. That's just not somebody that, hey, if he's there, great, we'll use him. If he's not, we got other guys. That was a guy that was your offense. That was a guy that was an integral to what it is that you were doing on a weekly basis. And now it's a, look, if he's ready to go, we'll use him, but I don't know if he's going to be ready to go kind of attitude. That's shocking to me. And here's the deal. When they decide to move on, they move on. This isn't, we've decided to move on, but we should keep you around just in case. When they move on, they move on. Go ask Todd Gurley. Go ask Deshaun Jackson. When they decide it's time to move, they move. Okay? So we'll see if Cam Akers has another mediocre to less than that game, which, by the way, not out of the question. He had a way below mediocre game against the Buffalo Bills. Sean McVay's not going to keep giving a guy opportunities when he's telegraphing that he's not taking advantage of the opportunities we're giving him. He's not ready to go. He's not taking it serious. Whatever that coded language may be, what I'm hearing is, I don't have to have it. I want it, but I don't have to have it. And if he's not going to give it to me, I'm going to go look somewhere else. The Rams are all in. The Rams don't have the luxury of letting this thing play out over weeks and months and then deciding, well, maybe he's not our guy. They paid everybody. They are really top heavy in what they have as far as roster construction. They're going to need some performances from guys that aren't their top line guys. Cam Akers is one of those guys. Can he do it? I think that is the number one question for this group, for that group, the running back group going into Sunday. And that he's talking about it, Sean McVay, that is, as openly as it appears that he is, well, I think that it's all on Cam Akers at this point. Now, we could get to Sunday and the offensive line could be completely underperforming and none of this would really make much of a difference. But the difference between him not being out there and him being out there and not having any room to run, there's a big difference there. Right? He wasn't out there. He touched the ball 3 times. The offensive line was bad in week 1, but Cam Akers' stat line was not a result of a bad offensive line. It was a result of not getting out there because the coach didn't think he was ready to take advantage of those opportunities. That's the big difference. My advice to Cam Akers, play well this week. Play well against an Atlanta team that's probably a little bit better than any of us thought it was coming into the season. Speaking of the Atlanta Falcons, how do you go about beating them? How do you go about making sure that this goes from a, hey, we played a good Buffalo team that caught us a little flat-footed to, we're 0-2, and the Atlanta Falcons probably aren't a playoff team. What do we do next? It's coming up on Locked On Rams. Today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, helping you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, we are gearing up for fall, and you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. If you've ever had to hire people, you know how difficult it can be. Not just to actually find the right guy, but to pour through all of the resumes and letters and calls and everything that you get. How about this? Create a job post in minutes for free on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easier to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you create the candidates you want to talk to faster. And did you know that every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/NFL/LockedOnNFL. Let me give it to you again. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so priority number one going into game 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, and other than win the game, right? That's at the top of the list. It really is remarkable how quickly this changed. That looking at the schedule when it came out, the Rams, look, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. You knew that the schedule was going to be a bear. You knew that the schedule was going to be loaded up with good teams, and then add on the fact that you get the AFC West, which has 4 pretty good teams into it. Add in the fact that your division is pretty competitive. Maybe it's not quite as good as we thought, but it's going to be competitive. So you're going to have a monster schedule. But if there was a spot to kind of get right, it was right here. Arizona's next week. That's coming up. So all of a sudden, now this becomes a game that you have to have based on what happened to Buffalo. The good news is I do think Atlanta is probably one of the weaker teams that you're going to see in the NFL this season. And the little bit of background about me. I am a Marcus Mariota fan. I have a lot of family members that have attended the University of Oregon, and we are Oregon Duck fans in my house. And we were thrilled to see Marcus Mariota win the Heisman Trophy and take the Ducks within a game of winning the national championship. All of that being said, as I'm watching Marcus Mariota play, the same thing keeps coming back to me over and over and over again, which is he doesn't throw the ball very well. And this is going back to his time in Oregon. The idea of this guy is dynamic. He's a great athlete. He can make some stuff happen, but that wasn't a very good pass. And when you go back to the Mariota years at Oregon, it was him throwing to guys that are open by 4 or 5 yards. And the ball doesn't have to be perfect, right? It could be a yard behind. It can be on the, it's to the point where the receiver slows down and can kind of run into the open throw. That doesn't work in the NFL. Guys are locked up, and the guys in the NFL open is like a yard, maybe a yard and a half or 2. In college football, you can be open by 8, 9, 10 yards sometimes. And guys that don't have accurate arms can still put up big numbers. I think Mariota fell into that category. I think that's why he struggled in Tennessee. I think that's why it never really happened for him in Vegas with the Raiders. Obviously, you've got Derek Carr in front of you there, so a little bit of a different dynamic. And it's why I don't think it's going to work out all that well for him in Atlanta. In the NFL, you need to throw the ball accurately. If you pass accurately, it's why a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick lasts for. Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't 1/1,000,000th of the athlete of Marcus Mariota, but he puts the ball here instead of there, and it's the difference between a completion and a pick six. I'll go back to something that Sean McVay did the very first time I ever met him. And we were sitting and doing kind of like a film session. It was me and it was Kirk Morrison, my partner on the Rams pregame show. And he was kind of this was when Jared Goff was still here. He had just gotten here from Washington, and no one was quite sure what he was all about. So he brought in a bunch of media members and said, this is kind of how I see things going. And he showed a piece of film where the play that they were running, and he showed 3 different examples. He says, this is why you need to watch Locked On Rams on YouTube so you can see me right now, but just I'll paint you a picture. Okay. And what McVay said was, if the ball is here and I'm holding my hands up on my left ear, that's undefendable. That's a first down every single time. If my quarterback can put the ball here on this play, it's a first down. Okay. Then he says, now, if my quarterback puts the ball here, holding my hands up right in front of my face, that's a 50-50 ball. We might get it. They might get it. It might get completed. It might get, they might get defended. It's a 50-50 ball. Okay. So we've gone from undefendable on my right ear to 50-50 ball right in front of my face. And then the third one he said was, if the ball's over here and I have my hands by my right ear now, that's a pick six going the other way. That's the difference. Undefensible, 50-50, pick six. That's why these guys, when they talk about accuracy, that's what they're talking about. And think about it. Your left ear to right ear is what? A foot apart? And let's exaggerate a little bit and say it's 2 feet. Say it's 3 feet. Let's say it's a yard. Okay. Pick six on one side of this, undefensible on the other side of this. That's what we're talking about. That's what the Rams need to make Marcus Mariota do. That's what they need to force him into, because the Falcons can run. The Falcons had the 4th most rushing yards in the NFL last week, week 1, against the Saints defense that is pretty darn effective, right? This is a good Saints defense with Cordarrelle Patterson and Marcus Mariota. They put up over 200 yards along the way. Marcus Mariota ran for a touchdown as well. They should have beaten. Most people that are experts in this stuff believe that the New Orleans Saints are a playoff caliber team. right? That they may even be a sneaky division winner if they can get to Tampa and handle them the way they have the last couple of weeks and take care of their business, last couple of seasons, I should say, and take care of their business elsewhere in the season. Atlanta nearly got him. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. But they got him because they run the ball. Marcus Mariota doesn't pass. They were only one of 5 teams last week that didn't have a passing touchdown. This league is about throwing the ball for the most part. You have to do it. Marcus Mariota does not do it particularly well, but they do run. So you need to really force him into a situation where he has to become a more passing-oriented NFL quarterback. Because if you let him run, you're going to have problems. He's good at that. And then if you have to worry about him running, and now all of a sudden he might get that little extra space that we were talking about, where it's not a 50-50 ball, it's a pick six. He's got a little bit more of some wiggle room along the way. You don't want that. You don't want that. Make Mariota beat you with his arm, not with his legs. Make the Falcons beat you through the air, not through the ground, because this has gone from a game where you feel like, okay, we could pad some stats. We're going to get a win. This is a 10, 13, 14-point win. Feel pretty good about this, to a, you know what, we really got to find a way to win this game no matter what. If it's a 17-16 win, we'll take it, keep it moving, and we'll figure out the Cardinals coming up next. It's changed a lot. Mariota's the key to beating the Falcons. Make him throw it. Make him beat you through the air. Do not allow him to do it on the ground. Everything should turn out okay for them. Okay, so some other keys to victory, starting with that Rams offensive line. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. You can find all the latest league football developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including all the lines for this week's games all season long. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today to use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so some other keys to victory for the Rams coming up on Sunday afternoon at SoFi Stadium, week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons. What do they need to get done other than making sure that Marcus Mariota doesn't run around on them, which I think that they'll have a pretty decent chance of getting done? Number one, you have to be multidimensional. This kind of puts together the two things that we've been talking about really since the end of that Buffalo game. You need to be multidimensional. You need to have, and I mean a couple of different things by that. Let's just start with the most obvious one, which is you need to be able to run the ball a little bit. And not in the predictable, hey, it's first down, we're going to run it, we're going to throw it on second and third down. We'll see. Mix it up, vary what it is that you're doing down and distance-wise, and see what you can come up with. Because the Rams, about halfway through the second quarter, it was a empty backfield, spread everybody out. Let's see if Matthew Stafford can make something happen again. That's not going to work week in and week out. You have to find a way to get something going on the ground. Think about what Sony Michel did last year. Sony Michel wasn't run for 150 yards a week. He wasn't carrying the ball 35 times a game, but he was back there and you had to respect it. He was back there and you knew that they might give him the ball. You knew he might get you 4 or 5 yards, and you knew that you had to defend Sony Michel. That opens things up for everybody else. In that first game, other than a couple of Darrell Henderson runs, one was pretty good. The rest of it was somewhere between meh to way less than meh. You have to find a way to get either Henderson or Akers going in that backfield. Otherwise, you're going to see a repeat of what happened before. Now, they may win because Buffalo is a lot better than Atlanta, but this is not a recipe to go win a whole bunch of games if you're just trying to chuck it 40, 50 times a game, especially considering Matthew Stafford's elbow. So that's the most traditional definition of being multidimensional, right? Being able to run, be able to pass. But let's get more dimensional in the passing game. Cooper Kupp, great game. Right? Cooper Kupp, 10 plus receptions, over 100 yards, scored the Rams' only touchdown of the game on a touchdown pass. He was great. Okay, they lost by 3 touchdowns. You're going to have to get other people involved. You're going to have to make sure that Allen Robinson is getting some looks along the way that don't include one look in the second half, one look in the first half, and that's it. You're going to have to get Tyler Higbee involved. You're going to have to get something out of a wide receiver that's not named Cooper Kupp, whether that's Tutu Atwell, whether that's Ben Skoranek, whoever that they want to put out there to give them an option to throw the ball to somebody that's not number 10 is a big deal. Because, look, This isn't a perfect comparison, but it's good enough. Think about when you're watching NBA basketball and the other team has a guy that you can't defend. Think Jordan with the Bulls a million years ago. This is what teams would try to do. It's, hey, let Jordan do what Jordan's going to do. Jordan's going to get his 35. He's going to get his 40. If he goes crazy, he might get 50. Nobody else gets anything. We're going to lock the whole thing up beyond that, and we'll see what happens. And sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Scottie Pippen has a game, you lose. Steve Kerr has a game, you lose. John Paxson, whatever it is, if you get something from one of those other guys, you're going to lose. That's Cooper Kupp. And I'm not comparing Cooper Kupp to Jordan. I'm not a crazy person, okay? But what I'm saying is, if I only have to defend one guy on that field, if I only have to worry about Cooper Kupp, and I can say, okay, look, give him his 15 catches, give him his 150 yards. He might even get in the end zone once or twice. But if nobody else does anything, you're not gonna beat me 14-10 every week. I'm gonna get more than 14. I'm gonna go get mine. That's feeling more and more like the approach to beat the Rams from a defensive side. You need to be more multi-dimensional. And I'm okay with Higbee. Let's get Van Jefferson back as quickly as possible. Let's get something from Tutu Atwell at some point. Keep in mind, he was the Rams' top pick a couple of years ago, second-round pick. They've gotten to say that they've gotten nothing is not an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. They've gotten nothing. No catches. We're into his second season. No catches. Nothing. Couple of one target and you dropped it. Come on, man. Let's get a little something there. And if that's not going to work, let's get McCutcheon out there. Let's get Skoranek out there. Let's give somebody an opportunity to make some plays, because the guy that they have out there right now in place of Van Jefferson just isn't cutting it. And get Allen Robinson involved. This needs to be a top priority for this team moving forward, not just a perfunctory, okay, we're going to throw it over there to check the box. Get him involved in the offense. Let's find a way to make sure that maybe he's the primary, not just a handful of times, a handfuls of times. These are the things that they need to take a giant step forward this week. This cannot be just, hey, we improved, we're still struggling. No. You had a bad opening act. You need to make sure this is the second seat at the restaurant, right? I heard a lot of good things about this. Came in pretty underwhelmed by what I see. I'm going to give you one more shot at this. You're going to have to make sure that this is not just better, but significantly better. They need to do that on Sunday at the SoFi Stadium. I almost said the Coliseum again. I need to forget that ever happened. The Coliseum was not the greatest place to be on a Sunday afternoon. It was okay. SoFi is a lot better. Let's do the games at SoFi from now until the end of time. That sounds good to me. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson giving you expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.